This is In the Trenches, broadcast 12.
Welcome to In the Trenches, where entrepreneurs, artists, writers, designers, inventors, warriors, and leaders share their stories of doing the hard, creative work that impacts all of our lives. Let the journey inspire you to do something worthwhile, build something bold, and create your life's work. And now, your host, Tom Morkis.
Welcome back, everyone, to In the Trenches. Before I do the intro for today's guest, I just wanted to give all the listeners out there a few updates on my personal creative journey. If you've been reading my blog, you're probably aware of this already, but I recently quit my job, and now I'm devoting 100% of my time to entrepreneurial pursuits, including, but not limited to, creating a boutique creative publishing platform called Insurgent Publishing. I'm hoping to introduce a new wave of artisanal content where the publisher isn't just the money and marketing arm of the endeavor, but a creative collaborator on projects. And I'm hoping this bridges the gap between the quickly fading traditional publishing model and the unpredictable but oftentimes lacking in quality self-publishing. I honestly believe there's a happy medium that can be found in between those two worlds, and that specific boutique publishers can bring quality content to specific groups of people, the type of people who want that kind of content. So that's the goal of that project I'm working on. And if you're wondering what kind of content, well, I'm finding inspiration in books like The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, Poke the Box by Seth Godin, Rework by the folks at 37 Signals, and Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. These are all short, powerful, memorable manifestos. They inspire immediate action, and they leave an impact. So that's what I'd like to see more of in the world, and I'm hoping Insurgent Publishing can help make it a reality. So if you're a writer, artist, or just someone who'd like to get involved and collaborate on some really cool, fun, creative stuff, shoot me an email at tom@tommorkis.com. Besides Insurgent Publishing, I'll continue to write for my blog at tommorkis.com and record new shows for this podcast, In the Trenches, as best as I'm able. I say best as I'm able because in about a month I'll be leaving the country for 1 year to travel abroad. This is something I've wanted to do for the past few years, and now it's time to take the scary plunge and do it. So if you're in New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, Argentina, Chile, or Peru, or just want to meet up in any of those places, let me know. Again, just shoot me an email. If you're curious how I'm able to travel for a year with no real job, no half year's income saved up, and no traditional safety net, the answer is I'm not sure how I'm doing it myself. I'm just doing it, which I like to think means I practice what I preach. It could also mean I'm crazy. You decide. If you'd like me to keep creating podcasts, though, please go to iTunes and leave a review. 5-star reviews and comments help spread the word, and they really help spread the reach of a podcast significantly. So the more people that listen and review, the more validation I have that this is a podcast people want to hear too. And that makes me want to continue producing it. So thank you so much in advance if you do get a chance to leave that review. And thank you in advance for spreading the word. So these aren't the only things that I'm working on. I've got my hands involved in a few other really incredible projects. But I don't want to take up too much time before I introduce today's guests. So if you want to find out more about what I'm working on, definitely subscribe to the Resistance broadcast. Just go to tommorkis.com and you'll see an email opt-in box where you can subscribe to get my weekly blog posts, along with exclusive content just for subscribers. Again, thanks in advance for subscribing and for following my journey. So now on to today's broadcast. Today's guest is a good friend of mine who I'm excited to have on the show. He's an entrepreneur, an NCAA football record holder, the creator of Mission Kilimanjaro, which won a 2012 ESPY Award, and an all-around stud. Dan created a leadership movement called Athletic Capital, where he cultivates human initiative in America's younger generation. What sprung up as a result of Athletic Capital is Dan's first international initiative, Mission Kilimanjaro, which was showcased on CNN, Fox, ABC, CBS, and the 2012 ESPY Awards, where Kyle Maynard won Male Disabled Athlete of the Year, a truly incredible feat. In February of 2013, Dan co-founded the Higher Purpose Project, leading the pilot program in the spring with 25 attendees from 6 different countries and 13 different states. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Dan's done a lot of incredible things, and he's really an intelligent, driven person, and I'm really glad to have him on the show. So without further ado, here's today's broadcast. So Dan, thank you first and foremost for being here with us today.
Oh, dude, thanks so much for having me, Tom. Like you're quite the stud yourself, and I've really enjoyed following your platform, man. I'm real proud of you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Dan. So, hey, we can pretty much start wherever you want, but I always like to get a little background on the person that we interview. So, Dan, tell us a little bit about yourself and essentially what's led you up to what you're doing now with Athletic Capital and the Higher Purpose Project.
Yeah. Well, 3 years ago, I was kind of working in corporate America. I wasn't necessarily passionate about the work that I was doing. And then I kind of had this epiphany, just through dealing with different adversities in my life and different setbacks. I was like, oh, man, if this is what life is, then this is going to be a long slog. I can't do this. So I took a leap, and in 3 years, I've been able to build some pretty amazing projects and bring together some awesome individuals. And I found in a short time that when you follow your passions, when you kind of take that step into the unknown, you meet amazing people like yourself, Tom. And, your life just takes on a new glow, that's, just really, really great to do.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious then, as far as that glow you mentioned, is that something that you didn't necessarily have before then in corporate America? Is that something that's kind of newfound based on the projects that you've been building, and it's kind of like a new appreciation on life, or what? Tell us about that.
I think it's kind of tough because I think, we're brought up in, traditional education. We're taught, you have to do things a certain way. You have to follow X, Y, and Z. And in today's world, it's a lot different. And I was kind of living the life of my father. I thought that I had to make money, working in finance, basically just doing things that I wasn't necessarily passionate about, but people felt that, this is a great route for you. And I think if you can learn this at a young age to, basically really kind of create intentions for yourself, like to really dive into, what you enjoy, what you're passionate about. Because once you do that, it really sets the tone for the rest of your life, because you start using some creative faculties that you have, and it really enables you to kind of set yourself apart from the pack. And when you kind of have a vision for something and you follow through on it and you take that step, that's when all the resources become available to you. And it's really a process that's not well understood. And I think more younger people are starting to question the void they have in themselves in certain regards. They're like, man, like this life that I'm leading right now, like it sucks. Like I want to do something about it. So then they start asking the deeper questions, which forces them to basically start kind of examining different things. And I think that's when you stumble upon different resources. That's when you kind of discover new paths that you can potentially take. And the people that succeed are the people that take the first step. So that's kind of
and I would say, and the second and third step, and they keep going, right?
Exactly. But the hardest thing for people to do is to take that first step, because it's so easy to get caught up in, these are the 10,000 things I need to do to get this objective done.
Yeah.
And if you just take the first, like all the other subsequent steps, they're revealed to you. And it's just getting comfortable in that unknown and embarking upon the journey, and then committing to yourself that I set out to do this, I'm gonna get this done. No matter what happens, I'm gonna learn, and I'm just gonna use this as a growing practice.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating how you touched on the idea of each step kind of bringing forth the proper resource that you need for the next step. Almost, I mean, that's a paraphrasing. I probably didn't do a good job of it. I think you said it better.
Yeah.
But it's like, I love that idea, and that obviously resonates deeply with me, because a lot of it is things in life are uncertain, and all you can do is just do the thing in front of you, take the first step, and move towards it. And it's funny how things just kind of open up, and resources come to your aid, and people come to your aid, and just things start to build and expand, and they all come together, pieces fit together that you couldn't have foresaw like before you started.
Absolutely. And it's so important just to have that creative process, and have that faith in yourself, like when you have cool visions on stuff, to really follow through on them and investigate like how you can bring that vision to life. I mean, I think all of us have tremendous gifts in different ways, and it's really just kind of uncovering those gifts and remembering who we are, and just really just kind of embarking upon that journey to live that epic life, because it's just amazing how much potential we each have, and just a small fraction of it is often utilized on a daily basis.
Yeah. So tell us how that message, everything you just said, basically, how it really applies to. I'd say let's start with the Mission Kilimanjaro, which I think is just a fascinating story. Tell us a little bit about that and kind of the things that we just talked about, how that really applies to your story.
Yeah. So I think, there's always, for you to kind of take, these leap into these big visions, I think you have to kind of endure, adversities or certain setbacks that, force you to kind of wake up and be like, all right, like, I don't really like this path that I'm on. I need to do something about it. And so that happened to me. I was working in corporate America. I made a lot of money. Like I was selling like insurance, I was selling insurance and financial products, and I made, like $34,000 in one day. And it was the worst day of my life. And it was just funny because I learned at a young age that money, in a lot of ways, it's a great resource, but if it's the sole reason that you're doing what you're doing, you're going to live a very empty wasteland, type of life. And so, I was very kind of, uninspired by what I was doing. And then, I had two events kind of happen to me that were pretty difficult. My brother, who's 2 years younger, was hospitalized. He had kind of like a manic, bipolar type of episode. Went to UVA, was like a brilliant kid. But, had difficulty, transitioning out of college. Like he identified with being a student. I played sports my whole life. And so when you transition out of those roles that you've, known for so long and, kind of formulated your identity around, it's really hard. And there's no kind of real structure, or group or, outlet that you can kind of go towards when you're, leaving, those type of pursuits. I mean, you can say that for yourself too, Tom, like leaving the military. It's very different. And so he was hospitalized and, they put him on a ton of drugs and, it was just really tough, and here's my little brother and I'm trying to be like, Brad, you can do whatever you want to do, man. Like you can take these, talents that you had in school and you can apply it to your life. I mean, there's so many things you can transition. And as I was saying those things, I was like, I'm not, I'm giving him this advice and I'm not living, and that started to really kind of hit me hard. Here my brother was hospitalized, I'm giving him this advice that, you need to live your dreams, like this is just a small setback, you can continue to move forward, man. It's not the end of the world, so I was giving him all this advice and, stepping back, I started to look at myself and, my brother's really competitive. He's like me in a lot of ways. And I started to understand that the only way I could get through to him was through action, through embodying the things that I wanted to do. I mean, and I looked over the course of my life, like I never listened to teachers that, taught out of textbooks. I listened to teachers that, went on the journey themselves, led the adventure and, spoke from their own individual experiences. And so, Mission Kilimanjaro was kind of created, out of that struggle with my brother. And the girl I was dating at the time too, went through a similar breakdown, and both of them were on all types of prescription drugs. And, it was kind of it was against everything that I believed in and taking accountability for your own path and, utilizing setbacks like that to dive within to see what the real problems are rather than taking drugs. And, so I dealt with this on two sides. And, so Mission Kilimanjaro was initially, it was my girlfriend's, vision. She was like, oh, I always wanted to go to Kilimanjaro. And, so when that relationship started to dismantle and break away, and, when the relationship with my brother got tough, I was like, all right, I'm just going to create the most epic vision that I can possibly create. And I'm going to focus on a message that, if you confront your fears and your perceived limitations, there's no limit to what you can create in this world. And so we used Kyle Maynard, a kid that was born without arms and legs, and we built an adaptive climbing system. And, this young man, through the mindset that he had, he bear crawled to the top of Kilimanjaro, without any assistance. And, so that whole experience, was really meant to have an impact on people, to have them look at Kyle and be like, this kid has all these physical limitations. Like, what is holding me back in my own life? And just having people, take ownership for their own path. And, if it's not as epic as they want it to be, then, taking the step to make it more interesting.
That's incredible. Great story. And it's just fascinating too. A couple things like, I guess really resonated with me in terms of, you mentioned you talking to your brother and then telling him giving him this advice, and then being that's the point where you reflect and you're like, wait a second, like I'm giving this advice and I believe in it, but am I really living it?
Yeah. Do I really believe it with the life that I'm living?
Yeah, exactly. That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's really cool. And I think what's cool about your story is that literally that was the spark, really, essentially, to go and start doing it, to go start creating these experiences and these events and these adventures and doing everything that you're doing. Yeah. Really incredible.
And that's the great thing about adversity sometimes. It really forces, when everything's comfortable, everything's status quo, like a lot of times we don't take the steps that we need to take to evolve and to grow. Because I think, the sole purpose in this life is to evolve, as people, to learn lessons, to expand who we think we are and what our potential is. And usually it's done through, experiencing difficult things rather than always being, everything's great all the time,
Yeah, exactly. So that's really interesting. So you climbed it with him. How long did that take?
Well, to be honest, like the biggest, really the hardest part of it was fundraising. So we raised close to $80,000. We did a lot of things that were foreign to me. I had no idea how to do. We set up a social media platform, which basically enabled people to follow the entire experience, enabled them to feel like they're a part of it. So people could track us via Google Earth.
And let me interrupt real quick. Sorry, because I think this is actually really an important point. You mentioned, you basically just started this from scratch.
Yeah.
Like your experience. What experience? You didn't have an experience in doing this kind of thing before, did you?
I had none. So I was always, like after I saw Kyle's documentary, I hadn't even met Kyle. I saw his documentary, called A Fighting Chance that was on ESPN earlier. And I was like, oh man, this kid has an amazing mindset. And, I kind of crafted the Kilimanjaro vision while I was sitting in my office. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. And so the first step for me was understanding how to connect to people and how to get the right people involved. And so I basically walked out of my office at 5:00 every single day. I went to Apple and I went to their one-to-one program, and one-to-one, just basically enabled you to go in and have live IT support. So I would take in all my personal projects. And if I didn't know what I was doing, I'd be like, can you help me with this? And I was doing it while they were giving me, just, insight or, or helping me forward with certain aspects of it. So, over a 5-6 month period of just going in there every single day from 5 to 10, I was, able to build a website and, connect with Kyle. And then, I ended up selling all my stuff and moving from Boston to Atlanta to, build the last 5 months of the project.
Jeez, that's all in.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we brought 2 veterans with us. I flew from Boston to DC to meet with Kyle to pitch him the idea, and he was, instantly kind of into it. But I had nothing, and I want people to understand that when you craft a vision, you don't have to have a ton of resources. In today's world, you can reach out and connect to anyone. It's just understanding the platforms that enable you to do that, and taking the time to to explore things that interest you.
Bam! I love that message. That really totally resonates with me, man. Obviously, a lot of the stuff I write about and talk about is exactly that philosophy. Is that it's all out there. It's there for the taking if you want to take it. If you want to, whatever you want to be, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to add value to or create or invent, build, write, whatever, it's there. It's incredible how accessible it all is too, isn't it?
Exactly. And that's where we live in. There's tons of information. It's just being able to kind of take what's important and to get rid of stuff that's irrelevant, because there's a lot of noise out there too. And I think as you start learning to navigate and you start learning, what it is you're particularly passionate about, you can kind of narrow down your focus. And with all the noise out there, it's so important. And there's certain practices too that I really focus on. I am very creative, and I do love a lot of different things. But when I set my intentions on one vision, I usually focus on one thing at a time. And then I use this concept throughout my life, and I think this is really the primary reason I've been able to, accelerate a lot of my growth is whenever I fear something, I go right at it. I see fear as the, accelerator in a lot of ways, and so by kind of reconditioning yourself, that anytime you have that kind of that deep, like, I don't know, I don't know if I should do this. I'm scared, like that's the indicator that you should, take that step, and it's something you need to do. And so kind of like reassessing that relationship and reconfiguring that in my mind, it's enabled me to, to really kind of do the things that I've always wanted to do, in a lot fewer steps.
That's it, man. Fear is the guidepost, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We got to evolve past the fight or flight response,
I know. I totally agree. That's interesting. So tell me about a little bit more about what came from, this jump into, you created Athletic Capital to begin with, right?
Yeah, I created Athletic Capital. It was basically an experiment. I was starting to learn certain things. I played sports my whole life. And so a lot of the things that I learned came through that pursuit. And I think you can learn a lot of universal concepts through, music or art, but athletics was the thing for me. And so, in athletics, I started to realize like the power of visualization. So I'm like a pretty small guy. Like when you look at me, like I look like a kicker, and in college, I did all the groundwork. I played middle linebacker, which is, a position that's usually, given to someone that's a lot bigger than I am. I was the wedge buster on kickoffs. I would run down and, sacrifice my body.
Yeah.
And I did all the jobs that people didn't want to do. But, as I started to get more into, my college career, I played at Division I AA level. I would visualize like how I would, make plays like the night before. I would visualize like, how it would fit, my responsibilities. And what I found is like the next day, like it would, like what I was visualizing would play out in reality. So I was like, man, like it's kind of crazy, like the things that I'm visualizing in my head are playing out in reality, in my life. Like how can I, transition this into every aspect of my life, my relationships, the way I make money, my career. And it's been a constant evolution. But like in college, when I was a junior, everyone was like, oh, you'll never play, you'll never start at linebacker. You never do those things. But when I was a junior, I led the nation in unassisted tackles. And then I'm the current, NCAA record holder for most unassisted tackles in a game. And, it wasn't through like, a talent or anything. It wasn't like I'm just, a lot stronger, a lot faster, a lot bigger than my opponents. It was this simple aspect of visualization, believing in my particular vision and then just pushing through the difficult parts. Cause I feel like whenever you feel like the entire world is about to cave in on you and everything's about to collapse, like that's always the breakthrough point, So that at that point, because in the world, everything exists in opposites. Hot can't exist without cold. Summer can't exist without winter. Success can't exist without failure. And so whenever you're at the other opposite where you're like, dude, it can't get much worse, you keep on pushing through and then lo and behold, you enter into this amazing like mecca, that you didn't even know was there. Just through continuing to push through and, a lot of people give up, right when they're on their cusp of amazing stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of sad when you think about it. So but that background though in athletics and really that specific story about, not being, say, somebody that was just, I just was born into this kind of ability that you worked for, you visualized it, you made it happen, you created it. How did that influence Athletic Capital and these other social projects that you've built?
I basically wanted to teach people the mindset because it's a mindset. It has nothing to do with externals. It has nothing to do with talent. It's a simple mindset that you cultivate over time. If you learn, I'm a big believer. One of the major influences in my life is Joseph Campbell and his concept of this thing called the hero's journey. And I've kind of instituted that in every aspect of my life. And basically how the hero's journey works is basically this formula that's found in myth. It's found in all of the greatest stories, all of the greatest religions. It's a universal concept. And, once you kind of, basically impart that into your life, whenever I want to do something, I just take, take the step and I do it. And so what I wanted to do is all these different experiences that I was creating, I wanted to share them with people. I wanted to share my insights through my direct experiences. And I wanted to basically use it as, a way to really, empower people to, to learn from their own experiences, not just to like take content, consume content and be like, oh, read like 100 self-help books, a day. I wanted people to, really, put the information into their daily life. So Athletic Capital, I started interviewing some of the world's greatest creators. I wanted to see, what the key, connections were, what made people outliers. And so basically it was like a study. I started this thing called the Be Your Own Hero, spotlight. And I would reach out to people that I saw as heroic, that were just doing amazing things. And I would ask them like really deep questions about, how they dealt with adversity, about mindset, really just getting into the depths of their kind of soul to see how they operated. And, I felt like it was a tremendous gift, to the people that obviously followed me, but it was also a tremendous gift to myself because I was learning how these amazing people were building their life. And once I saw like how they were doing it, I was like, oh, I can do that. So, I started learning from, the things that they were teaching me and then evolving it to fit my own skill set and my own creative, pursuits. And so, Athletic Capital then, basically spawned into Mission Kilimanjaro, where I took a huge leap of faith where, money was on the line. I risked everything I had. And, my vision, I was able to bring it to life. And so it gave me the confidence, to continue pushing forward. And then, that project, we met all these amazing people. We met Eric Weimeyer, who's blind and summited Everest. And, we met, we sat front row at the ESPY. So I got to sit next to Mr. Belding and, all these actors and actresses and all these sports stars that I enjoyed. I got to kind of pick their brain and kind of, see who are like the true, compassionate, creators, like the people that really get it at the highest level. And so then that spawned into the Higher Purpose Project. So I wanted to take all these amazing people that I had met with Mission Kilimanjaro, and I wanted to create a platform, that helped teach people the mindset and gave them access to a support network of people that were, embodying all of the principles. They were, teaching through their direct experiences of building amazing lives. And so, yeah, cause I think that was one of the hardest things for me is I didn't have a support structure, with the stuff I was doing. I was very, careful with who I shared my vision with because people just didn't understand. I was like, I'm going to take this kid who I've never met before, who has no arms and legs. I'm going to take him to the top of Kilimanjaro and I'm going to raise $80,000 and I'm going to make it happen and it's all going to work out. It's going to be amazing. And when I explain that to people, they're like, dude, you're crazy.
Yeah.
I don't get that. So, I think that's a really hard aspect of it is like confronting your parents, and they're like, what are you doing again, Dan? You're not doing what I did my whole life. How are you going to make money? Or, you confront your friends that are just like, well, I can't do that. How are you going to do that? So it just, each one of these projects has successfully led to the next step. We'll see where it takes us from here.
I love that. I mean, a few of those things resonate with me. Obviously, the one step at a time and building a kind of project base and seeing how things evolve. Big fan of that. I love that. I also, what did you say? There's something that you said there that was really fascinating to me. It was, gosh, what were you just talking about? It was, okay, so it was about, you're talking about these different projects you're working on. Oh, okay, connecting with people that you wanted to learn from. Yeah. It's like, that's why I started the podcast, so I connect with people like you, Dan.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
It's crazy because, that's exactly what I would do with interviewing people, I would provide value to them by bringing attention to their work, The greatest creators, it doesn't matter who it is. It could be a big actor, a big actress. I've worked with all different types of people. People love, when others express gratitude towards their work. And if you do it in an authentic manner where it's not like egoic, like, oh, can I get your autograph or, I could care less about those things. I want to learn from you so I can, take some of the lessons and apply them to my own life. And I also want to bring attention to the stuff you're doing because I believe in your work, and I think it's awesome. And I want to share it with other people and I want to figure out ways to collaborate. And I think if you have that mindset where, you know what, I can provide value to anyone, and, you know, just by listening and being able to kind of, take, note of what's important to people, you know, you can always figure out ways to provide value to people. And so it gives you access to just amazing individuals.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, with all that said, tell us a little bit about the higher purpose project, what that ended up, I guess, what the execution of it looked like, and tell us a little bit about that, and kind of, again, I'm guessing probably this is a little bit of a similar story in terms of you weren't quite sure how to do this, but it all came together. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I wasn't sure like how I wanted to kind of take my experiences from, you know, Africa and building that initiative. I wanted to create more or less a network of conscious creators, you know, so people that I'm very good at kind of recognizing the it in people. And, you know, Tom, like, you definitely have the it.
Thank you.
Good at finding people that have creative capacities and are good leaders. And I can see like the qualities, and I can see the dedication and work ethic in people very, very quickly. And so when I find those people, I love to connect with them, and I love to figure out ways to collaborate. So I was like, all right, how can I build like an amazing project that basically, you know, helps provide value, so I can bring in some facilitators. So these are people that have already like consciously created their path in really neat ways. And then I can bring in people that are like on the onset, you know, so that would be like me when I was in corporate America in 2010, you know, or 2009. And I was like, I have like a vision, but I don't really know how to do it. You know, I could bring in someone like that, and I could more or less create a educational platform, a learning structure where people could apply, you know, the information we're giving them on a weekly basis. So it consists of weekly webinars. So we go through 3 months of weekly webinars. And I was like, dude, like, you know, webinars are great, but I like physical interactions, and I like, you know, feeling it, experiencing it. So we created a 3-day summit. It's going to be 4 days in this fall when we relaunch the project. But this past May, when we ran the first pilot, you know, we had a 3-day summit. So it was great. You know, we took everyone out of their element, you know, out of their routine, and we went to Big Bear Lake. So people had to take more or less like a leap of faith to become part of the project. You know, I basically brought in some people that had a huge impact on me. So I brought in Kyle, the kid that we took up to Africa. I brought in this director of a film called Finding Joe. That's all about the hero's journey, all about Joseph Campbell, who's one of the biggest influences in my life. And, you know, I brought him in to serve as a facilitator. I brought in Taylor Felisky, who won, the ABC reality show Expedition Impossible. You know, he was a kid that really didn't have a lot of experience doing, world adventure challenges. So they would do like these epic challenges all around the world where they would do different types of obstacles. And Taylor's team, he had 3 people on his team. They obviously, you know, they destroyed everyone they competed against, and they competed against NFL players, like all different types of groups. And what Taylor did is he visualized, you know, before he went on the show, him and his team like visualized like different aspects of the competition, and they visualized like succeeding, winning the grand prize. And no one even came close to touching them, you know? And it's people like that that are just amazing to me. So I brought in Taylor, then I brought in this kid, Jordan Lejeune, who started a self-sustaining community in Montreal, that he brought in. He has like a multi-million-dollar earthship that they reached out to, a creator, you know, who's really good at building these things. And they created a conference, you know, so they provided value to this gentleman who in turn decided to build them an earthship in Montreal. So then they built this huge community around them, you know. So all these individuals were people that were doing it. And then we brought in 25 people from around the world, 6 different countries, and we had an application process. So we were kind of picking out people that had kind of, you know, that drive and like that vision to do something bigger with their life. And, you know, they had the call, you know, they wanted to answer it. So we brought them into Big Bear Lake, and, you know, we went through a process of different workshops, physical adventures, you know, just made it as exciting as possible, and really created those authentic connections. So when people went back into their communities all around the world, they would have a network of people that they could, you know, have as resources and have as a sounding board for their upcoming projects. So this fall we'll be relaunching the project. Currently, the website is thehigherpurposeproject.com. We're in the process of getting through all these tons of applications that we're receiving and selecting the 40 that we want to take part in this project. And so that'll be happening, through September is the application deadline. And, it'll be a new adventure with some new faces.
That's awesome. Well, that's really incredible, man. Again, just building that stuff from scratch is just so impressive to me.
Yeah.
So good on you for doing that.
That's the biggest thing too, as far as this pilot. Like, we had no idea what we were doing, so we knew we had to test it first. So we decreased a lot of our prices, and we just did it. We're like, okay, like, if we were to really run this, how would we do it? And so then we did it. We ran a pilot group and we let everyone know, we were learning from our own experiences, and, people were learning from us as well. So it was a great way to kind of enable people to participate in it at a discounted rate while also enabling us to learn from it.
Yeah. Well, just talking to you and looking at the program and everything like that, everything I've heard about it and everything I've seen and read about it, I have a feeling this thing's going to blow up, get even I'm sure it already has this year, and I can only see bigger and bigger things down the road, honestly.
Yeah. It's great. I'm able, like, on my own selfish ways, like, it's great because I can bring in these people that, like, I admire, and I've always wanted to meet and have a personal relationship with. I get to bring them in for this project and, have fun. So it's great.
Totally. Hey, man, sometimes the selfish pursuits are the best.
Yeah.
Hey, but the best for everybody else too.
Exactly.
That's a fine line there. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah. It's good to you have to kind of set the intention on your own. But it's always for the greater good, and, you kind of have to follow your own individual passions to, contribute to that greater good. Cause if you don't love what you're doing and you're not a little selfish, and kind of being like, well, this isn't for me, then you can't lead your path, and you're just, you're living a life according to, the society or your parents.
Yeah, you have to enjoy or be interested or love what you do to put everything into it, man. And it looks like you're doing just that. So congrats on that and all the impact you're making, which is really impressive.
Thanks, Tom. The resistance movement, dude, like, I love, receiving your newsletters, man. And, just the stuff that you've been able to build in such a short time, especially with your commitments, at West Point with the military. Dude, it's amazing. And I know, speaking from my own experiences, it's sometimes hard, like, to get outside of those, platforms, and to create on your own. And, dude, I commend you for all the steps that you've made in such a short amount of time. Doing all the epic things that you've accomplished in the real world, dude. It's amazing.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. Well, I wrap this up. I want to make sure that we can get people to find out more about you and about your projects. But also, before we just sign off with your, Twitter handles and all that, what would you say? Every now and then I like to ask people, like, give a piece of advice to somebody just starting out or something like that. So what would be your one piece of advice for maybe a college student or even after that, an adult who's just, just starting out or has these ideas in their head about wanting to do something?
I guess the biggest advice I could give is, life is an adventure. A lot of things that we gravitate towards as kids, it's the truth, and I think as we get older, we have a tendency to kind of think that we have to play adult. We get caught up in playing different roles. I got to be a lawyer, or I got to be, this is who I am. And, life is so much more than that. And so, the advice I would give is, live the adventure, just think of your life as if it were like a book, you're writing it. You're the creator of your reality, nobody else, by diving inward and kind of, focusing on within, you create the outer. And so it comes out of you. So it's like Peter Pan. Like, that was one of my favorite things growing up. You have an opportunity to go to Neverland all the time. And, Neverland, the only way to get there is to think happy thoughts, to believe in who you are, and, to not get caught up in heavy roles, like, we all need to be able to fly. And, the way that you're able to fly and lead an epic life is through being positive, through believing in yourself, believing in your own visions, and, confronting that darkness when you need to confront it. So, all the great heroes, like they've experienced an equal amount of darkness as they have the light, and you can't experience light without experiencing darkness. So wherever you're at, just know that everything's as it should be, and just take this step that you need to take now, in the present moment to get one step closer to where you want to be.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's it, man. I got some seriously good quotables from this interview, so I'm excited to go back through and re-listen to it and edit it and post it. So good stuff, man.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks so much for having me, man. And I'm really happy to help you in any way I can. And I look forward to continuing to read The Resistance and promoting you and all your amazing works.
Thank you so much, Dan. And for everybody listening or watching, you can catch Dan. Tell me the best place to get you. I would say Athletic Capital, but I don't know. Maybe if something you prefer.
I would say, go on the higherpurposeproject.com. I'll have a short profile on there, but you can kind of see, we have a blog on there, has tons of cool resources. You can kind of see, my thought process behind stuff. And, if you're interested in wanting to join us in the fall, please feel free to fill out an application. And, we're always looking for cool attendees.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll make sure to post that, and that'll be in the show notes for everybody listening. And I'm going to try to publish this one pretty quick so that I can hopefully push people your way, Dan. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Awesome, Tom. Keep on embarking on the journey, man. I know you got some epic stuff ahead of you that I look forward to following.
And that wraps up today's broadcast. If you're interested in finding out more about Dan, check out thehigherpurposeproject.com or just go to tommorkes.com/broadcast12. That's the number 12. And I'll have everything linked up there. I definitely think you should check out the Higher Purpose Project, though. I think it sounds like a really compelling project, and it's pretty competitive. It's only going to be a few people, I think, that are actually going to be allowed to get accepted into it, and it's an application process. So if you're interested, if you check it out, if you're interested, I highly encourage you to get involved quickly and put in an application quickly. I believe around September is when they're going to be finishing up with all the application process. So that being said, check it out and let me know if you do. As always, this is Tom Morkes, and if you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Thank you for listening to In the Trenches. Your creative work doesn't stop here. Join the Resistance, the small but growing army of entrepreneurs and artists putting a dent in the world at www.tommorkes.com. Never fight alone. Join the Resistance.